So why does crime exist? I mean, it's one of those huge fundamental questions, right? And the answers? Well, they're way more surprising than you might think. Let's dive in and listen in on a conversation between some of the sharpest minds to ever tackle this question.
And we're going to start with a really provocative idea. Forget everything you think about crime being some kind of social disease or a flaw in the system. Just for a second, what if it's actually necessary?
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to build this idea up piece by piece. First, we'll dig into a truly radical theory about crime's real purpose. Then, we'll see how other thinkers grabbed that idea and ran with it, applying it to everything from the American dream to rebellious teenage subcultures. Okay, our story starts in the late 19th century with a French sociologist, Émile Durkheim. Now, you got to remember, he was writing during this time of massive change. The Industrial Revolution was turning everything upside down, and it made him completely flip the script on how we look at crime.
And here's his bombshell. Get this. Durkheim argued that crime isn't a sign that a society is sick. He said it's a normal, totally inevitable part of any healthy society. Now, he wasn't saying crime is good, not at all. But its existence, that's just a social fact, as normal as birth or death.
Now, this is where it gets really wild. Durkheim said crime actually serves a purpose. It has positive functions. First off, it brings people together. You know, when a crime happens, the whole community unites in outrage, and that actually strengthens their shared values. Second, punishing criminals, like in a public trial, is like a lesson for the whole society. It reminds everybody what the rules are. And third, and this one is huge, crime can actually lead to positive change. Think about it. Every major social reformer, from the suffragettes to civil rights activists, was called a deviant or a criminal for breaking the unjust rules of their time.
To really hammer this point home, Durkheim came up with this brilliant thought experiment. He said, okay, picture a monastery filled with perfect saints. You think there would be no crime, right? Wrong. The standards would just get so incredibly high that the tiniest little slip-up, like just being a bit rude, would cause the same scandal that a major crime does in our world. His point? Deviance is all relative, and you can never, ever get rid of it. But, and this is a big but, Durkheim warned us there's a tipping point. See, a little bit of crime might be functional, but too much leads to what he called anomie. This is basically a state of chaos, where the rules get blurry and people feel totally disconnected and lost. It's a complete breakdown of social order. So you see, it's all a balancing act.
So, Durkheim lays this incredible foundation. Now, let's fast forward a few decades. An American sociologist named Robert Merton picks up Durkheim's idea of anomie, but he uses it to explain crime in a totally new context, 20th century America. Merton looked at the American dream. He said, look, our culture screams one message at everybody. Get rich. Material success is the goal, the ultimate prize. The problem is, while society pushes that goal on everyone, it doesn't give everyone the same legitimate tools, a good education, a solid career path, to actually get there. And that creates this massive gap, this tension he called strain. So how do people deal with this strain? Well, Merton broke it down into 5 basic responses. Most of us are conformists. We play by the rules and hope for the best. Some are ritualists. They've given up on getting rich, but still go through the motions. You have retreatists who just drop out of society altogether. And then there are rebels who want to tear the whole system down. But the group we care about for this conversation, the innovators. They totally buy into the goal. They want the money, the success, but they reject the normal ways of getting it. They find new and often illegal ways to win the game.
Merton's theory is absolutely brilliant for explaining crimes where the motive is money, like theft or fraud. But it leaves us with a couple of big, unanswered questions. What about crimes that have nothing to do with profit, like just senseless vandalism? And why do so many young people commit crimes together, in groups, instead of on their own? And that's where our next thinker, Albert Cohen, steps in. He looked right at those gaps in Merton's theory and decided to focus on what happens when deviance becomes a group activity. Cohen's big idea is something he called status frustration. He looked at young working-class kids who were constantly being judged by middle-class standards, whether it's at school or trying to find a job. They're set up to fail, and they know it. They feel disrespected, they feel blocked, they feel like the whole game is rigged against them. So what do they do with all that frustration?
Well, Cohen says it's not an individual thing, it's a collective solution. They find other people who are in the exact same boat, feeling the exact same way, and together they form their own little world, a subculture, that solves their problem by just completely rejecting the rules of the society that rejected them.
And here's the really clever part. In this new subculture, how do you get respect? How do you gain status? Simple. You do the exact opposite of what mainstream society tells you is right. Society says to respect private property. Well, in this group, you gain status by vandalizing it. Society says be polite and quiet. They reward you for being loud and defiant. They literally turn mainstream values upside down.
And just like that, Cohen's theory beautifully solves the puzzles Merton left behind. He explains why groups of kids might commit crimes that aren't for profit. It's not random or senseless at all. It's a perfectly logical, even if it's destructive, way to gain status and respect when the mainstream world won't give you any. So, let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway from this whole journey? It's that our understanding of something as complex as crime isn't static. It's a conversation that unfolds over time, with each thinker building on and sometimes challenging the ones who came before. You can see the evolution so clearly. Durkheim gives us this radical foundation. Crime is normal. Merton takes that idea and adopts it, creating strain theory to explain individual money-making crime. And then Cohen comes along and refines it even more, using status frustration to explain group crime that isn't about money. It's a perfect example of how knowledge gets built, layer by layer. And that brings us right back to today. See, these theories aren't just dusty old ideas from a textbook. They're lenses. They're tools we can use to look at our own world. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. If societal pressure and status frustration are such powerful drivers, where do you see those forces at play in the world right now?